And action. Okay, we are officially live. Here we go. Everybody, so we should be streaming. As you know, I am KSA Kris, host of the Real Estate Blitz, and hosting this bad boy today for RE Mob. Actually got a live video. Very cool today because I'm excited. I used this recently. So I got a chance to hang out with Jordan. Jordan's going to introduce himself in a second. I got to sit down with Jordan recently in a class that he gave for RE Mob. And I used it last week. I was cold calling, which a lot of you, if you're following my series I'm doing right now on the Real Estate Blitz, I'm talking about going after absentee owners, talking about, where's the cheese? Looking for somebody that can sell their property where they don't have to buy a property in order to move in as their primary residence, which is why I'm chasing a lot of absentee owners right now. But you understand, a big part of that is if you're educated and you know what you're talking about, one of the guys last week, he goes, man, I have about $1 million of equity in this property. My concern is that if I sell it, then this, that, and he starts going on. I says, well, have you considered the 1031 exchange? He says, well, what are you talking about? I says, well, you could literally sell it, not deal with the taxes, or don't get deeper into that. You deal with this, but a certain amount of taxes, and then you could buy like properties and even do it in a completely different state and then shelter your taxes because it's not your primary residence. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, dude, look, I can help you sell it. You can get this $1 million of equity in while we're at the peak of the market. We can find you something in another state where you can buy multiple properties at a better return. Because right now in California, it used to be I wouldn't touch anything in California unless I was getting 1% per month on principal. That's a 12% annual return. So for every $100,000, I want to make $1,000 in cash flow, because there's three ways to make money on a buy and hold investment, right? You're looking at your cash flow, you're looking at appreciation, that's the money you make over time, and depreciation, writing off, right, a certain amount of money in your taxes so you make more money, because there's only two ways to make money. You either make more of it or you save it, right? You hold on to more of it. So this is where the 1031 exchange is so important. Knowing what this is, how it works, and how to talk intelligently to it, and then be able to have a contact. If you look at this dude over here, be able to have somebody that you can call and bounce information off, ask questions, or even connect your client with is going to get you more deals. This is how you're going to generate more business this year. So with that said, I want to introduce you all to Jordan. Jordan, do us a favor. Tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're at.
Sure. Hey, Kris. Thanks for having me on. My name is Jordan Phillips. I'm with a company by the name of IPX 1031. We are a qualified intermediary. So all we do 24/7 is facilitate 1031 exchanges. So my role within the company is to help you, your clients, plan and guide, through the 1031 exchange process. So really happy to be on today. Happy to go over 1031 exchanges. The exchange market is still extremely historically hot right now. We're seeing exchanges all over the country, every property type imaginable. So really happy to be on today.
Cool, man. So let's just jump right into it. I think the first thing, before we can really get into, because I want to talk to agents eventually and say, how can we use the 1031 exchange? But I think in order for us to really get into that, we need to even know what it is. So Can you tell me, what is the 1031 exchange?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So code section 1031 of the Internal Revenue Code, what it allows you to do is basically, if you have real estate that is held as either an investment or in the use of a trade or business, you can sell that asset, and instead of having to write Uncle Sam a large tax bill, or in the state of California a large tax bill, you can actually defer paying those capital gains taxes by going out and reinvesting those proceeds in other investment or business use real estate. So it's a tax deferral mechanism. It is probably the most powerful tax deferral mechanism in the Internal Revenue Code, and it's one of the most beneficial tax codes for real estate specific. So if you're an investor in real estate, or you're going after investors in real estate, knowing the powers of a 1031 exchange is almost a necessity. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. And this is what's cool about that. And I'm going to go deeper. So you mentioned, and I'm taking notes while you're doing this, because there's so much that we could talk about on this. And I think, and by the way, for those of you that are watching live, and I'm watching numbers pop up, pop down, pop up, and usually once this live thing starts going for a minute, then everybody starts jumping on. You're able to ask live questions. So if you have a question, it'll pop up. So just post it down in the comments down below. We'll go ahead and answer that question if you send it in, and we'll just get it going. So this is the thing, dude. I'm going to ask you. Oh no. Okay, I was like, oh no. All right. I want to get into who and of course why, when, but I'm also writing down you had mentioned defer. So we're going to talk about defer, what that means and how long. I also want to make sure we double back on, investments. So I think some people get confused on 1031 exchange, especially this is what's cool. People that I've seen this happen where they sell a property here in California. They, especially like I had a client out of LA, they sold a property in LA, had a ton of money. They were able to use the 1031 exchange, and then they bought multiple properties in Texas, and it actually gave a better return. They were only getting, I think, a 6% annual return. They went out to Texas and they got a 22% annual return on their money, and it was fantastic. So I want to talk about that, but let's start with, okay, so we talked about what it is. So who can use the 1031 exchange? Because not everybody can use it, correct? Let me rephrase. Anybody can use it, but there are qualifications in order to use it. That's probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah, so anyone who can use it, who owns investment or business use real estate. So anyone who is selling, or any entity that is selling investment or business use real estate, can defer their federal and state capital gains taxes by doing a 1031 exchange. Who does not qualify for a 1031 exchange would be someone, for example, selling their primary residence or a second home or a short-term flip. So what the IRS qualifies it is not the actual property type that you're selling or buying, but actually how you're using the property. So as long as you're selling investment or business use real estate and it's in the United States, or the U.S. Virgin Islands or Guam, so those qualify as well, you can absolutely take advantage of Code Section 1031.
Okay, so it's not just specifically, because I think some people get confused with 1031 exchange. They go, okay, so if I have a single rental property, so it doesn't have to be a house, correct? It could be apartments, multi-units, could be what? What could it be?
It could be anything your heart desires, as long as it's actually real estate. So only real estate qualifies for 1031 exchanges. They did away with personal property exchanges back in 2018. So since then, it's just been real estate. But the property type itself doesn't matter. So yeah, if you want to sell a single family rental, go out and buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex, anything commercial. Vacant land qualifies. Water rights,
Farm?
mineral rights. Yeah, any type of farm qualifies. Billboards, windmills, as long as it is actually real estate, it will qualify property type wise for a 1031 exchange. So mixing property types, that is absolutely fine. Mixing up states, that's fine as well. So very broad as far as what you can buy. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we talked about the who, the what, and we talked about types. So now let's get into kind of, I think it's important, the when. So deferring. So let's go deeper into deferring and let's talk about whens as far as timelines, things like that. So if I wanted to, okay, this is a good question. So I just got a question. It says, would a manufactured home on leased land be allowed?
If the land lease is so leasehold interests they do qualify for 1031 exchanges as long as they have at least 30 years left on the lease. So a 30 plus year leasehold interest is considered a fee simple interest in the real estate, which does qualify. If it's less than 30 years, it would not qualify for a 1031 exchange.
That's actually a badass question. I hadn't even thought about that. And I know there was some time ago, a buddy of mine, Derek, he was my neighbor. We used to flip manufactured homes in 55 plus communities. And the thing is, there's three different ways. You got lease land, you have co-ops, and then you have, actually, owned land. And for the co-ops, we love them. For the owned land, we do it, but we really wouldn't mess with the lease stuff. But now knowing that, I'm kind of like, especially for these non-55 plus, if you have something like that, you turn them into actual, as long as it fits within the lease land HOA, you could actually probably do those as rentals and then still do a 1031 exchange because it's going to appreciate to a point. That's not a bad freaking question. That's a damn great question. Cool. All right. Something new for me. I'm going to have to take a note on that. Right on, dude.
Yeah, you see a lot of ground leases as well.
Really? Okay. Well, tell me about
99-year ground leases. Well, so like for example, I had a client who basically what they did was they had a 99-year ground lease on a piece of land. They built an office building on that property. They used it for themselves for about 5 years, and then they basically just sold the ground lease with the property along with it. So that actually qualified, for a 1031 exchange.
So that's actually a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of the gas station corners and all that stuff, somebody actually bought that land, brought in these different companies, and they still own the ground lease on that. And they are selling off the building specific, but they still own the land, which is always interesting to me. So even I know there's a huge thing. I got to call up my buddy. He's really big into creating. Oh my gosh, I've been drinking this Red Bull. It gives me wings and apparently the burps. So I'm trying not to like burp out loud while we're going. But he actually develops manufactured home tarps, and the returns are just bananas on those returns. So it's interesting to set up something like that and then be able to turn around and sell that down the road is pretty fantastic, actually. Okay, good stuff. I'm learning a lot here today myself. So deferring. You talked about deferring. How long does that work? Because I think some people might say, okay, well, I'm going to, and I think that's a concern sometimes. It was mine too. I was a little ignorant, but I still am ignorant in a lot of ways. So if I sell, I don't know, a single family house, and I decide I'm going to take the equity from that, I'm going to put it into other units or other, like properties. And I'm kicking the can down the road on taxes, correct? That's basically what it is if we're going to simplify it. How long can I keep kicking the can down the road?
Indefinitely. So fortunately, Code Section 1031 is an indefinite tax deferral mechanism, meaning that you would never pay capital gains taxes unless you actually sold that property and just cashed out. So if you did sell that, let's say you buy a property 10 years later, you sold it, cashed out, took your money. At that point, you would pay your capital gains taxes, not only the gain that you deferred into the property, but also that additional gain you made.
Oh, wow.
But if you never sell, and for example, you could hold the property until you die, which a lot of our clients do. And if you hold the property until you die, you get what's called a step up in tax basis, meaning that all the gain that you accrued while you were alive gets wiped out upon death. So your heirs actually would receive that property and could sell it and pay zero in capital gains taxes. So it is an indefinite tax deferral mechanism, and the taxes would only be due if you sold that property that you purchase, within a lifetime.
Wow. So let me make sure I completely understand this. So you can indefinitely, so for the term of your life, you cannot pay this, which means, and we talked about it earlier, 3 ways especially for buy and hold properties or anything like that. So I'm really looking at cash flow. I'm looking at that appreciation. So I think I'm so glad it wasn't that finger because I wasn't even paying attention. I didn't get to the depreciation, but so the appreciation, it's not what you think it is, folks. Okay. You take that appreciated money, you can roll it into other like properties, kick the can down the road. So I'd like to talk about that too, is how much, but we'll get to that in a second. So kick that can down the road. As long as I keep doing that, I'm going to save all of that cash that I can roll into something else. And then if I decide I want to leave these properties to my heirs, if they choose to, they can keep doing it too, but they don't have to. Basically, you're telling me that they don't have to incur my taxes. The taxes die with my death.
Correct. Yeah. The only, like, for example, if they inherited a property and then it appreciated after they inherited it, so after you died, and then they sold it, they would only pay taxes on the gain that was made after your death. So, so it gets, all that gain that you had, it's wiped out. Your kids get the property. If they sell it immediately, they would pay zero in taxes. Now, let's say that property appreciates a little bit and then they sell it. Only that appreciation that was made after you passed, they would pay taxes on.
Yeah. Cool, man. So it looks like we got a couple more questions here. I'm going to show this one up on the screen. Hey, Noel, how are you? Can you turn your primary residence into a rental and then use that for 1031, or does it have to originally be bought as a rental? Great question, Noel.
Yeah, that is a good question. And you can actually convert a primary residence into an investment for 1031 exchange purposes. So basically, in order to do that, the IRS has laid out actual steps. So basically, what they would require is that you hold your convert your primary residence into an investment for 2 full years, so a 24-month period. If you do that, at that point, it would qualify as an investment for 1031 exchange purposes. On the flip side, for example, this comes up as well pretty often, actually. Let's say, for example, you want to buy a property through an exchange that you want to move into and have as a primary residence. It's the same thing. If you buy a property through an exchange, rent it out for 2 full years. After the 2 years are up, if you want to move into the property you purchase, you're free to do so. So
Nice.
converting a primary residence into an investment is 2 years, or converting an investment into a primary is also 2 years as well. So
Cool, man. Thanks, Noel, for that question. Hopefully I answered for you. And we got another one here. Let's pop it up. Bam. Can you see those on your screen? The questions I'm popping up? It's like pop-up video. Okay, well, I'll just read it to you. It's like a little pop-up video.
Sure.
I kind of dig it. It's showing up on the live feed there. It says, if you're added to title prior to death, does that affect the tax benefit of the 1031 exchange, i.e. parent adding child to title? That's actually a really great question. So one more time, if you're added to title prior to death, does that affect the tax benefit of the 1031 exchange? That's a great question.
I would imagine it would. Yeah, essentially what you'd be doing is being gifted a portion of the property. So in order to actually get what's called the step up in tax basis, that's the bank mechanism that actually wipes out the capital gains. You would have to inherit the property itself. So for example, if you wanted to add your kids to title and basically gift them a portion of the property prior to your death, that portion most likely would not receive that step up in tax basis. So it would be tax beneficial to not add them to title if you want them to be able to take advantage of that step up in tax basis.
That's interesting. So basically, if you want to keep your kids guessing and have them treat you really, really well all the way until the end of your life, so they don't just throw you somewhere into a home, you tell them it's because of the 1031 exchange, you're not going to put them on any of the titles, right? And then, they're just like, oh man, well, we really should take care of dad. We won't just put him somewhere where he's going to die because we don't know if we're going to get our, inheritance. And then you make sure it's in the will as long as they took care of you, and they don't have to deal with the taxes. Yeah, I like it. So,
yeah, probably the more efficient way to do that would be to have the parents put the property in a trust, with the kids being a beneficiary of the trust, so it just automatically passes to them. They don't have to worry about it. Right. But then, if that's the case, then they can take advantage of the step up in tax basis.
Cool, man. Yeah, I know. I want to do a trust interview, or I think one of the people with Ari Mob is going to do a tax interview or trust interview, excuse me. But I mean, that's between this and I see a ton of trusts, and it's wild because a lot of investment properties are bought in a trust anyways. So I definitely would like to see that in those videos because, I try to jump on here. I don't do what you do. You've been doing this for a long time, right, dude? Because you're like the boss over there. So I've been imagining that you're the expert. I'm not. I have a general idea of what the 1031 exchange is, but I definitely am not the expert, nor am I the expert on trust. So I always love getting these opportunities to now talk to people that know what they're doing. So one of the things that we didn't talk about, and I don't want people to walk away from this video being ignorant to a potential truth. Here's a real good potential truth. So let's say I buy a house for $300,000. I turn around and sell it for, let's make a ridiculous number, $2 million. I sell it for $2 million, right? And I want to take the equity that I got from that home and I want to do a full 1031 exchange. Where's the money limits? How does the money limits work? Is there too much? Is there too little? Is it just kind of I can spend all of that I did or more? So I had $1 million sitting here. I have $2 million there that I got from the house. I have an extra $1 million. So I'm just going to tax defer all of it. How does that work?
Yeah, so let's say you sell for $2 million. To defer all taxes, you'd have to go out and essentially buy something for $2 million or higher, using all the cash from the sale towards the purchase. Now, if you want to go out, buy up in value, there's no limitation. You can go out and buy a property for $1 billion if you had,
But what about
$900 million
to take some of the money? So let's say I got $2 million out of my pocket.
Yep.
I'm like, you know what, dude? I'm going to get myself a new car. So I'm going to keep 200,000 of it. And then I'm going to put the rest in there. So do I have to spend all of it and get tax deferred, or can I spend less?
Well, yeah. So a lot of our clients do what's called a partial 1031 exchange. So that's basically where you buy down in value. You're not using all the cash. You want to go out and buy yourself a Ferrari or whatever it is. So let's say you sell for $2 million and you put 200,000 in your pocket and use the other 1.8 towards the purchase. You could do that, but that $200,000 that you put in your pocket would be subject to capital gains taxes. And then you could defer the rest of your gain, which sounds like you have a lot of gain from that sale, through a 1031 exchange. So,
Right.
taking some equity and putting in your pocket doesn't invalidate the exchange, but you would just have to pay taxes on that amount.
Okay, cool. And timelines. What are the rough timelines on this? So I'm assuming, so what? I sell my house and it's like, you know what? I'm going to sell my house and then I'm going to wait for the crash and then I'm going to buy the other one and finally do the 1031 exchange. Is that how it works?
No. Well, so, we said the IRS is pretty flexible as far as the property types you can buy, right? But we are still working with the IRS, so they have to be a pain in the ass somewhere, right? So they do impose strict timelines, when doing a 1031 exchange. So from the closing of the sale, that's when the clock starts for the 1031 exchange. So from the closing of the sale, you would have 45 calendar days to go out and identify a potential property or properties to purchase, and a total of 180 calendar days to actually complete the purchase. So as far as those two timelines are concerned, closing within 180 days never is really an issue for our clients. But what is certainly in this market is the 45 days to identify a property. So to identify a property, all that means is you need to provide us, the qualified intermediary, with your property addresses, a list within 45 days. But 45 days, it's a month and a half. That comes and goes pretty damn quickly, especially in this market.
Right.
So if there's really any obstacle in doing a 1031 exchange, it surely is that 45 days to identify. And
Right.
clients always ask me, well, why is that so short, right? Well, to be honest, the IRS would probably prefer that you do fail your 1031 exchange and pay your taxes, but that is it. So, being proactive, going out, searching for properties early and often, even before the sale closes. I mean, that's the number one, as far as advice I could give to completing a successful exchange.
Cool, man. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper on that. And by the way, we got some more people hopping on. Thanks for being on. If you have questions, type it in the comments down below. We'll pop you up on the screen. We'll get the questions answered for you. So please feel free, ask as many questions as you want. I want to make sure you guys are getting something of value from sitting through this with us. Okay, so you talked about 45 days to identify, and I just want to make sure this is clear. And then what is it, 120 days, 180 days?
180.
180 total. So is it in total, or is it 45 days and then 180 days to close?
So the 45 and the 180, they run concurrently. So they both start the day after the sale closes.
Cool. Okay, good. So this is what I would recommend for the agents. And I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I always try to come from, I'm not the expert, you are. But if it were me, hearing what you just said, knowing that the challenge is like, how do we close this? And how do we identify within 45 days and make sure we close in 180 days, considering the market that we're presently in, especially if you're trying to buy something out of state? Okay, if it were me, I would actually write my offers. Excuse me, I would base my sale. So if I'm selling the property, I would base the sale based on finding and purchasing the next property. So I would basically say, hey, we will accept your offer, considering that we will not close until we're able to identify our next property. I would write that in as a contingency, but that's just my thoughts for those agents that are out there, because I know that's concern. It's like, oh man, well, how do I do that? I'm going to put it on the market. I'm going to get it closed. And then we got 45 days to scramble. You should already be looking for a property prior to really getting it on the market, because if it's your fiduciary duty to look out for your client and to educate them, for one, if you have somebody considering this, instead of you trying to regurgitate stuff, call this dude right here, Jordan. All right. So that should be like step one, I would think. If I'm sitting in a listing appointment, we're getting ready to put this on there, I'd be like, look, before we even get started, of course, you're going to sign a contract, because I want to make sure we're going to work together. Otherwise, why would I give my energy to somebody that doesn't want to work with me? Right. And that's what a contract is. We're choosing to work together. But next, we need to call Jordan. We're going to get on the phone with them. We're going to go through everything so you're 100% aware and knowledgeable what the 1031 exchange process is, so we can ensure that we don't get you screwed. Because I'm curious about this, and I'll go back to what I was just saying a second ago. If they don't identify or they don't close on time, does the IRS say, oh, it's all right, we're just going to give you more time?
Unfortunately, the only time, and I get this all the time, so a lot of clients think these are my timelines, these are my rules. No, these are the IRS's. And the only time that the IRS issues extensions for either the 45 days or the 180 is due to a federally declared disaster. So
Oh, wow.
if you're affected by a federally declared disaster, for example, in September of 2020, there were some wildfires in Southern California in which the IRS did allow basically 120-day extensions on those timelines. But outside of that, if you're unable to meet those timelines, and those extensions are pretty rare, just as a heads up. So unless you're able to qualify for one of those, if you're not able to meet the timelines, unfortunately, the exchange would fail. So the IRS is very strict about those. Yeah.
Yeah. So the government's coming back and saying, hey, pay up, sucker. Where's my money? So you're just out. Okay, so it's good we know that. So let's go back a little bit. We had started going into what if no close. We had talked about the timelines on that specifically, and then getting somebody in touch with you. So I sit down with my client. I start talking to my client. Say, hey, first things first. After signing the contract, we got to call Jordan. They call Jordan. Jordan says, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. Then I'm going to make sure that as we put it up for sale, we write in a contingency specifically saying we will not close until we identify the property. Now, how many properties can they identify as far as potential purchases in that 45-day period? Because once they identify them, they have to purchase one of the ones they identify, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So the IRS does limit how many properties can be identified. So there's two identification rules in which you could choose one or the other. The most common is what's called the 3 property rule. So what that means is you could identify 1, 2, or 3 properties, and they could be any value. But as you mentioned, there's clients who want to sell in California, go out, buy out of state, where properties are typically cheaper, sometimes much cheaper, and they want to diversify and identify lots of properties, more than 3. So basically, if you identify more than 3 properties, so 4 or more, the total value of those properties can't exceed 2 times the sales price. So it's called the 200% rule. So for example, if you sell for $1 million and you want to identify 4 or more properties, the total value of those properties cannot exceed $2 million. So you're either limited on the total number of properties, 3 or less, or the total value, which would be 2 times the sales price or less. So within the 45 days, you can change those properties as much or as little as you would like. But you are correct. Whatever that final list is by the end of day 45, you would have to choose from that list. So if your property comes up on day 50 of the exchange that you fall in love with, unfortunately, it could not be a part of the 1031 exchange. So once you go past day 45, there'd be no point of actually searching for additional properties for your exchange because it wouldn't have been identified.
Okay, so let's say I close on this property. My client says, hey, I like this property, let's go look at it. They like it and they want to write an offer that day. Do I identify and designate same day? Or do we still have to run through the identify process and then look to close? So I'm saying so kind of a cart before the horse situation.
That's fine. I mean, you can go out, write offers without formally identifying the property to us. As long as we're provided with that identification form by the end of day 45, that's fine. So if you want to go out, yeah.
Awesome, dude. All right. So before I start getting into real estate agent specific stuff and getting you to give me a little support or just help me brainstorm a little bit. So, because the big one is the education on the 1031 exchange, what it is, how it works, the different little minutiae of it. And then also knowing right here, call this guy first, Jordan, call him first. Once you get a client that's looking to do something like this, I want to start digging a little bit deeper on the angles. I want to look at the angles from an agent, how to communicate, how to talk, and then have you back me up. But before we do that, is there anything else that you can think of right now that you would want somebody like me or somebody that's watching definitely people are going to be watching here in the future because this is going to be all over the place once we get done with this video. Anything else that you would like to pass about the 1031 exchange process that we may not know that we should know?
Well, so really there's like basically four major guidelines in doing a 1031 exchange timelines. So as long as you're aware of the 45 days and 180 days to close, 45 to identify, that's key. The property type, so as long as you're buying and selling investment real estate, it'll qualify. The value, so we went over that. So if you're selling for $2 million, you want to defer all your taxes, go out and buy for $2 million or more. If you want to put some in your pocket, that's fine, but it's subject to taxes. And then the fourth thing is that that in order to have a valid 1031 exchange, the taxpayer needs to remain consistent from the sale to the purchase. So basically, if you're selling as husband and wife, you want to go out and buy the next property as husband and wife. Where this comes up a lot is, for example, we'll have let's say two brothers who own a property in an LLC that's taxed as a partnership, and they want to go out and buy properties individually, so not under the same LLC. That would be an issue, right? Because the LLC that they're selling under is a different taxpayer from them as individuals. So just making sure that the sale, how you sell, the taxpayer wise, is going to be consistent with how you purchase. Figuring that out early on is also key, because without that consistency, you can't actually do a valid 1031 exchange.
Cool, man. Looks like you're getting another question here. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. Pop-up video. I'm telling you, I don't know if you ever watched pop-up video, but it was kind of my thing back in the day. Says, Jordan, what is the biggest mistake you see made in these transactions? It's a great question.
Procrastination, to be honest. People, what happens, unfortunately, is you'll find people who maybe aren't proactive, or they'll find out about the 1031 exchange, right? They're about to close on their sale. They just find out about the exchange. They go into the process and they wait way too late to go out and start searching for properties. Like, I'll get clients who call me on day 40 of their exchange and, oh, I just started looking. What can I do? That's when I get is there an extension question? So those are the clients that typically, out of our, if you take 100 random clients, probably about 15 or 20% of them end up failing their exchange. Those are the ones who typically do fail, the ones who kind of wait around too long, don't get aggressive with searching for their properties. But most clients who are proactive, going out looking for properties to purchase early and often, are successful.
Right. That's disheartening. I think, going back, not everybody's going to use a real estate agent, but for whatever agents that are watching this, I would highly recommend, again, being able to call somebody like Jordan, and I'm going to make sure Jordan gives all of us his information, how he can contact him, etc. I'll probably even type it into the comment section here in a second while we're doing it. That should be the very beginning of the process, as far as I'm concerned. From the moment that somebody sits down with you and says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, or they say, yeah, I've been considering 1031 exchange, or I intend to use a 1031 exchange, says, fantastic. We're going to do a contract. This is what I'm thinking to make sure we can meet these timelines, but let's get my guy Jordan on the phone real fast and talk through all this so all three of us are on the same page, so his company can help you do, because here's the thing, and I'm curious about this. I literally just thought about this question. So can somebody, let's say I own a house, I'm going to sell it, and I'm just going to figure out the 1031 exchange thing on my own. Can I just do it? Can I just fill out a piece of paper and just call it good?
Fortunately for me, no, you could not.
Okay, good. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
So if somebody's doing a 1031, they have to go through a 1031 exchange company, or you're not called a company. What is it again?
So our technical term is what's called a qualified intermediary, or 1031 exchange accommodator or facilitator. So the IRS does require that you do have a neutral third party actually facilitate the exchange and hold the funds in between the sale and the subsequent purchase. So basically, if you do not have a 1031 exchange set up with someone like ourselves prior to the sale closing, the ability to do the exchange would be over at that point. So once you have either actual or constructive receipt of the sale proceeds, once the sale closes, the ability to do the exchange is blown. So it needs to be set up prior to the sale closing.
Awesome. So I was correct in saying, hey, you calling somebody like George should be number one out there. And what's great is because I just got a great question in from Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie. Says, is Jordan able to service all over the U.S. or is this state specific? And I think the reason why this is such a great question is if somebody's going to be forced, I don't want to, I guess that's, why not? It's a real word. If somebody has, it's required. That's a better word. Sounds less, mean. So if somebody's required to use a third party company in order to, be the in between the person being serviced and the IRS, I'm assuming that means you don't just cover the state of California. Is that correct?
Yeah, so IPX 1031, I can handle 1031 exchanges anywhere in the country. So we're actually the nation's largest 1031 company. So we're owned by Fidelity National Financial. So the same company that owns Fidelity Title, Chicago Title, Lawyers Title, Tycor Title, they own us as well. So it doesn't matter where you're selling or buying. I've handled transactions in every of the states. I've handled an exchange in Guam. I've handled an exchange in the USVI. So yeah, it doesn't matter where you're selling or buying. I can definitely assist.
Good. So basically what I'd like to just sum this all up, we talked about first things first, we go on the listing appointment, we say, yes, we're going to look to sell it. They say, well, I'm considering using 1031 exchange, or we sit there and give them information and they say, well, the 1031 exchange sounds great. I say, great. I would like to work with you. Would you like to work with me? They say, yes, you're the best person ever. I can't think of another real estate agent I've ever loved more. And say, awesome, let's go ahead and do some paperwork. But by the way, we need to call Jordan and talk through the 1031 exchange process so you two can start your process. I would like to have that underway before we even put it on the market. So when we put it on the market, we know what we're working with. We're already starting to look for like properties that we want to purchase, whether it's here or in another state, right? So a lot of you are going to be watching me, especially when I share this on YouTube. For those of you that are in other states and you're sending somebody to California, I'll take care of you. Southern California, I'll take care of you, and vice versa if you send me something. But Jordan's going to be the guy that gets it from start to finish, which I think is pretty great. And then we make sure that we put in some form of, we won't close until we've identified X property to purchase because we're using 1031 exchange or our, oh my gosh, I already forgot the word. But basically we won't close. So I really dig that. I like it. Is there anything else you think somebody should know before we start talking just kind of investor agent specific stuff?
Yeah, like you said, the earlier the better. Kris, your mentality as far as getting them involved, that's the mentality of someone who is always typically successful in their 1031 exchange, because if there's any issues that need to be fleshed out in a 1031 exchange, they usually can be with advanced planning. But if you wait till way too late in the game, that's basically the later you wait to get someone like myself involved and go over the 1031 exchange process, probably the less likely you'll be to be successful in the exchange. So you're absolutely correct. Just being proactive, get your ducks in a row, for the purchase and all that good stuff. And really outside of the timelines involved, it really doesn't change a whole lot of the sale and the subsequent purchase. So not overly complicated, as long as, like you said, you're kind of earlier in the game as far as planning.
Right on. Good stuff. So I think this is the other thing. I know I've been doing on the Real Estate Blitz. I've been doing a lot of videos as of late. I've done a ton of videos on investing because that's how I got into the real estate business. I was a full-time investor, I had a full-time investments business. The only reason we went into real estate is because the market had shifted to where I saw an opportunity to build a team and actually maximize our overall profits by getting into a traditional real estate market. With where I see the market going, especially here in California, because I'm in California. Again, a lot of you are going to be watching me from other states. Some of you from over, especially if you're watching Real Estate Blitz, you're going to see me from around the world. It's mind-blowing how many people watch me in other countries. But what I would tell you is I have a feeling with where the market is going, a lot of in a down market, if you do this right, you're going to make more money than in an up market. And I know a lot of people don't understand that because most agents that are in the market right now, and I always joke around, but it's true. There's a lot of people that come into real estate in a hot market because they're like, oh, I'm gonna kill it. People think I'm funny. So like people that think they're just gonna show up and be a comedian. It doesn't work that, like there's work involved, folks. You got to learn your craft and master it. But I think they're just going to quit their job at 7-Eleven. If you work at 7-Eleven, I'm not minimizing who you are. I apologize. I'm not here to offend, but it is, I got to use somebody as an excuse. You have this job. You think you're just going to jump into real estate and make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in your first year. And then what ends up happening when a down market hits, all these people wash out. They end up quitting. They end up going back to the job wherever they were working and doing whatever they were doing because they can't survive in this down market. But if you've already shifted, like I've already shifted, or you start shifting, I'm telling you right now, this is a tool in your toolbox. Being able to talk to investors, people that don't need to buy a primary residence. They can sell without having to buy a primary residence. I can't express that enough. Part of that is looking at people like this, absentee owners. And I'm telling you, 1031 exchange is a great way to leverage and move into making more profit in this market. Not that, but you can start being able to look at motivated sellers. You have to understand how people come up on non-primary residence. Sometimes a primary, it's from a death in the family. There's a lot of things that can take place. I would tell you, Google that, or you can look it up. I've done a ton of videos on this. What creates a non-primary residence? What creates an absentee owner? It's not just because, I'm telling you, most people, it's accidental. They become accidental investors. A majority of the people that I've worked with, they didn't purposely show up and say, I'm going to buy a rental property and I'm going to get cash flow, appreciation, and depreciation. I'm telling you, 90% of the time, it has nothing to do with that. They're accidentally becoming that, and they haven't been educated to say, look, right now, you have this much appreciation in your home. You're unable to depreciate it anymore, and your cash flow doesn't match what it's actually worth. This is the other one. Well, I bought it for $200,000 and I'm making $13,000 or $1,300 a month. So I'm killing it. No, you're not, because that house that you bought for that is actually worth $700,000 now. And you should be making $7,000 a month, but nobody's educated you on this. And this is what I've done with a lot of our clients. You're only making $1,400. So I'll give you an actual example. We talked about this when I sat down the first time we met Jordan. We met this lady. She overheard me talking to my business partner about this conversation right here. And I was at his mom's house helping her put together a yard sale. And this lady says, she got like crappy. She should have been called Karen. She was like angry about it. You don't know what you're talking about. I own a property that I got from my mother, and it was free, and I make $1,400 a month. I was like, okay, well, hold on. I'm not trying to fight you, Karen. Calm down. What street is it on? Now, keep in mind, I know my market because I'm a real estate agent. She told me what street it was on. At that time, I was like, do you know that house is worth, at a minimum, $430,000 right now? It's worth $430,000, and you're only making $1,400? She said, yeah, but that's great because I didn't get it for anything. I said, no, there's value. There's value. If I could do this for you, if I could show you how to sell it for $430,000, and I could show you how to make $4,300 a month on the same house, would you give me a shot? She's like, yeah. So I sat down, I pulled out my pen and a piece of paper, I started writing out. I says, here's how you're going to get, I'm going to show you these properties. I'm going to show you how to make $4,300 a month. It's going to go like this. Now, not only that, would you like to make more than that? So I started penning up. At the time, she could get a loan for 3%. Now, if I'm giving a 12% annual return, and I could get a loan for 3% to borrow. So how about we take that $430,000, we put down 30%. Oh, let's even say 50%. So 30% or 50% of your money is giving you 12%. I'm going to borrow 3%, which if you did, so 10, 11, 12, right? So I drop one more. I'm going to teach you how to make 9% annual return on borrowing somebody else's money so you can expand what you actually have. And that's what she actually listened to us, and that's exactly what we did. And she calls us every year and buys more property. Now, what's cool, she was an accidental investor. Now she is a full-time investor. At the time, what I didn't know, she was living off of that $1,400 a month. Her mother was in a facility. She had to go back to work. She had been retired. She had to go back to work full-time to take care of her mother in this facility and cover her own bills. By showing her how to do this, she went back to retirement, became a full-time investor, and took care of her mother, and buys properties from us every year. And as they depreciate out, and they've appreciated appropriately, and she's gotten her cash flow, we're running 1031 exchanges with her. I'm telling you, folks, this is so important to know. So important to know, because that's what we did with her first property. Did the 1031 exchange and borrowed more money topped up on it. And took her out of a single family home, and we moved her into, I think it was a fourplex. was the first thing that we bought, was a fourplex with her money. And she has been investing with us every year. And she loves being retired and getting paid by being smart and talking to smart people. That's why I talk to myself. I like having intelligent conversations. Do you do that too, Jordan? Or is it just me?
I don't know if I'm as smart as you, Kris, but yeah.
Cool. Hey, we got some people on. Are there any other questions that y'all might have? If you do, pop it up. This is your opportunity. Love to get another question to in. While people are going to go ahead and pop up a couple things, Jordan, do me a favor. I know people are going to see this, and especially probably not right away today, but because we're going to take this video, we're going to start posting it everywhere. I'm going to post it everywhere. I would like to know if somebody's watching this and like, holy crap, I want to get involved. I want to learn more. I want to have Jordan speak in front of my team or my brokerage, or I want to get my clients in front of Jordan. How can somebody get in touch with you? How can they reach out to you and connect with you?
Sure, yeah. So do I have the ability to post my contact information down here?
Yeah, see where it says public and you can type in there?
Yeah.
Oh, or if you jump
post
on, yeah, you can post it on the Facebook page too. It'll do the same thing. And then I'll just take that and I'll drop it on my YouTube channel and all that jazz.
Sure, yeah. So I'll put my cell number. That's the best number to reach me at. Also my email address. So I'm fully accessible. So like I said, that's my role within the company is to help you and or your clients with any questions that pop up about 1031 exchanges. So anything you need, always happy to help.
Awesome. And you got a phone number if you just want to pop that out, because this thing, I'm going to copy and paste it from Facebook, but I know people that are going to be watching videos, or if somebody's listening to this, oh, you put in the host chat. If people are listening to this audio only, I'm going to pop this in there too. If they're listening to this audio only, I really would like to be able to have them hear it. Sorry, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to move it from this space to the public space. I might have to just type this out. So go ahead and just tell them how they can find you online and all that other jazz.
Sure. So yeah. So once again, my name is Jordan Phillips. My cell phone number is area code 442-287-7239. So that's my cell number. You can call it, text it, always have it on me. My email address is my first name, Jordan, JORDAN, dot, and then my last name, Phillips, PHILLIPS, at ipx1031.com. So call, email, text, whichever is easiest for you. Always happy to help.
Cool, man. I'm putting this in right now. 7239 and Jordan.Phillips at ipx1031.com. All right, that's all in the chat as well, folks. And I'm going to go ahead and put this up there. And Zachary Bach, thanks, man, for hopping on. We appreciate it. He says, what a good couple looking of dudes. Or what a couple of good looking dudes. I will agree with you. Now, here's the thing. Luckily, we don't have Zach on here because he looks better than both of us. So it'd be a little embarrassing. So, hey, Jordan, I appreciate you taking the time and hanging out with us today. I'll make sure I get this video to you too, so you can go ahead and share it out if you would like. And man, I'm really grateful that I got the opportunity to meet you at the RE Mob Shakedown Series event that we did last month. And hopefully we can get you out to a couple more here in the future. Thank you much from RE Mob. It's a new thing that we put together. It's really just a value. No one company is branding themselves or saying we're in charge of this. It's really just about giving value to real estate, people in the real estate community. It's not even just about real estate agents, it's about the community. It could be anybody that's in real estate investing, anybody that's in real estate in any way is going to get value from RE Mob. So I really appreciate you taking the time with us. Dude, thank you. And by the way, if you all didn't know, Jordan's getting ready to have a baby.
Yeah.
Was it like 2 weeks you said?
Yeah, my wife's going to be full term with our daughter in 2 weeks, so we'll see.
Awesome.
No more sleep for me coming up. Yeah, her name is going to be Cameron.
Oh, that's cool, dude. Very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jordan. Appreciate it. And if you got anything else, do me a favor. Just stay on real quick as I start this. Then you and I will talk on the side. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. KSA Kris here. I am out.